All right, welcome in. We are ready to rock and roll both sides of the ball. And we talk Jaguar football on our stream show. If you find us on any of the 1010 XL social channels, we totally appreciate it. Joe C. from XL Primetime. I man the middle, and I've got offense on one side, defense on the other side. To my left is Mark Duffner, linebackers coach for a long time right here in Duval, defensive coordinator, head coach, all that stuff. And then to my right, Super Bowl winning coach Gerald Ingram, coaching up those running backs in New York under TC, and then of course working here as well with Tommy Coughlin. Fellas, you guys welcome in, ready to rock and roll. We got to pour over a loss instead of a W. You okay with that? Because I'm not okay with that.
No, it was hard to swallow. It was tough.
It sucked. All right, so let's get into it. Now, both sides of the ball, we're going to hit it from both angles. You guys are more than welcome to jump in the chat. If you're picking us up on YouTube or any of our social channels, by all means, throw a comment on the screen, and Ozzy, our producer, will make sure that you are heard from. All right, so Gerald Ingram, let's get to the offensive side of the ball first. And I think the thing that was the most frustrating is that an offensive line that had played pretty good up until this point. They had kept Trevor upright for the most part, clean jersey, all that kind of stuff. Anyway, they got worked by that defensive line. So let's just start there as maybe one of the most obvious and frustrating things in this ball game.
Well, it's the most frustrating thing is, when you talk about your keys to victory and anything you do is winning up front. And both sides of the ball, weren't up to par in that standpoint, but definitely the offensive line. And it hurts your feelings because it's a trickle effect. Because now it affects your quarterback and how he decides to throw the ball, plants his feet and all those kind of things, accuracy and all those, and it affects your receivers, your skill, and everything else. So it wasn't good enough. It was bad. It was sad. And there's some things that have to be corrected. And there's one thing to start off with that having time to think about this. I hope we didn't address this team and say, because they're down in their secondary, that we're going to take advantage of throwing the ball and we may not run because they say they're great. I don't ever remember going into a game thinking how great they are to stop the run. And I remember playing Baltimore, and they were the number one, versus the rush when we were in New York. And we took that challenge, okay? And Ray Lewis came in there talking all this smack that we're not going to be able to run the ball and all this stuff. We kicked their ass. And it's a challenge. But you don't ever tell your guys up front that, hey, we're probably going to throw the ball more than we're going to run. We ran for over 200 yards rushing that day for a number one team, okay? Now, that's just the pride in me. I'm sorry, okay? But it wasn't good enough. We saw it. And we got to play better. Our offensive tackles played horrible.
Yeah,
linebackers beat them. It was just they didn't trust their technique. They're in a retreat mode most of the time, it looked like. We didn't stop anybody inside out. Yeah, I know we don't have the center, which is, it starts with having good leadership. You don't have that guy inside, who can just communicate to everybody and say, hey, guys, this isn't good enough. Let's get it right.
Yeah. It really does. Robert Hainsey, missing him was definitely a key. All right, Coach Duff, let's get to the other side of the ball because this is a team that basically was living off that takeaway title, and they weren't able to handle the big plays. They gave up two huge explosive, 61-yard plays. So kind of give us a synopsis of what you saw.
Yeah, I mean, that was a key in the game. That JSN at wide receiver and that tight end were factors in terms of explosive players for them. They really, though, I thought early on started out pretty good. They were 3 and out on the first series. I mean, even in the first half, other than the 61-yard explosive play, a one play bomb, they threw a 9 ball and got it to score. They didn't play too bad early on. I mean, when you look at the defense, they had, I think, 4 3 and outs in the game. They played pretty darn good in the red zone, forcing a field goal. I mean, the first quarter, Seattle had 36 total yards.
Yeah.
I mean, they were getting at it pretty darn good for a good bit there. But then, like I said, the quarterback to the receiver, JSN right now, 18 yards, 32 yards, 61 yards. I mean, you can't beat anybody when you give up explosives. limiting explosives and getting takeaways are kind of the formula to success on defense. We struggled getting the takeaways. But I mean, their third down defense in the game, geez, oh Pete, they were 1 for 11. And this was
Yeah.
an explosive offense, one that had over 450 yards the week before. So I think to answer the questions, just too many explosive plays. I think that was a key right there. They played pretty good in situations, third down, backed up 2 minute, played pretty good against the run, 2.3 in average against the run. But you've got to put pressure on the quarterback. We really didn't get much as far as that's concerned. We didn't affect a guy that's hot right now. I'm talking
Sure.
about Darnold. And, the takeaway thing, like you talk about, we got accustomed to that coming in bunches. We got to get back to that.
Yeah, it's funny because physically speaking, the lines of scrimmage, that defensive front against this offensive line definitely beat them up. And then without Devin Lloyd, that was pretty obvious that he was one of the kind of linchpins in terms of making plays. He was not there. Trayvon not 100%. All that type of stuff. All right, Social Alky's got a question. Put it up here, Ozzy, and Coach Ingram jump in on this one because basically you're taking a look at whether or not this football team. Whether Trevor was holding the ball too long or was the pressure that bad, because those are the two things that were pretty obvious between Leonard Williams and you can go down the line to Marcus Lawrence, on and on and on. They got to him, Coach.
Yeah, it really? I don't think the situation was Trevor's fault in any way. There's been some things early. Trevor didn't start fast early. He was inaccurate with the ball, but I think once he adjusted and settled down. He wasn't the issue. I don't think the ball was thrown. There might have been maybe 2 times that he might have held the ball on too long and maybe more one time, definitely, and probably left some yards out on the field and not finding the appropriate person. But I think the pressure, there were what, 27 pressures in the game? He hadn't had that. So it's been a while. So you kind of trusted, there was a trust in the offensive line and one, how you were going to handle practice this week. Okay. So that mistrust was there and they just didn't handle being ready to play this team.
That I think is the biggest head scratcher, really, when you think about what happened a week ago. Seattle loses in a shootout, basically. They let Baker Mayfield throw for over 350 yards. He had himself a day, 38 points for the Bucs, 35 for the Seattle Seahawks. They got to get on a plane. They got to travel cross country, Duff. And we're talking about a 10 a.m. body clock start for them. And this team was not able to take advantage of the big missing pieces in the secondary. So did they just basically forget about the run and try and go for the big play, the explosives early in this game?
Yeah, it's hard to understand it a lot. I mean, kudos to McDonald, the head coach, and having that team ready to play. And they felt like they let one get away the week before against Tampa Bay, and they came in here determined to make something happen, and they did it at the very first snap of the game. They sacked Trevor on the very first play of the game and kind of served notice that, hey, we're in this thing to make it a physical contest. I mean, I saw where we got hit 17 times. Our quarterback got hit 17 different times, and as Gerald mentioned, we hadn't seen that type of pressure. I mean, the percentage of pressure that Seattle, it was actually something they hadn't done as much. So their game plan was to come in and control the line of scrimmage, to knock us back as far as their defense, put pressure on the quarterback, make him try to beat us. That was their game plan, knowing that they were short in the back end. So their mindset was dead on. They were focused dead on. That's a critical component. We've got to have that for us too.
Yeah, and despite the things that happened, with our players on defense, the defense put us in position to win the game, and we didn't do that. As a coaching staff, we didn't find a way to win. Offense, we didn't find a way to win. I never felt, in this game that we didn't have a chance to improve and be better. And in the fourth quarter, you don't ask the defense to put you in a better situation when they were forcing them to go 3 downs and out as many times as they did and not have a chance to still win the game.
Yeah.
I think though too that looking back at it, I think Anthony called a pretty doggone good game overall, but I think because we didn't get enough we just didn't get enough heat on the quarterback. Darnold had too much time in the course of the game, and I don't know if it was schematically. Some of we didn't get much off the edge at all in the game. So I mean, they handled the run game. They certainly
Mhm.
did that, but the explosives. They have to fix. That's some of that may be communication. Some of that was technique. We were out of position on that 61 yarder. That
Oh,
looked like we were in I mean, that was just a bomb that went off. Looked like we had a bust or lack of communication or something there. But I know they'll fix that. But that kind of that kind of woke everybody up to woo, a little bit as far as that's concerned. And we just struggled to get back to where we pressured the guy. And you got to be able to do that in terms of playing really good defense.
right. And you
Well,
you
did you
listed
feel
off
that
you listed
pass
off the
rush?
amount of yardage that Darnold was able to hit Smith and Jigba on, and then that one, and it was the worst thing to see Greg Newsome trailing after they had just dealt Tyson Campbell, and then Dewey not being able to come over and get to
Right.
that one.
Yeah.
Coach Ingram, jump in on that.
Yeah, I thought, in that situation, he had a tough day. He
Yeah.
had two bad miscues, and I thought it was quarter coverage. I know, Coach, you can look at that, and I didn't think he was threatened by an over route or anything.
No.
He should have been in position to be deep enough, so we should have a 2-on-1 ball on that receiver coming deep. I thought he left him hanging on that to at least be a distracted on the ball.
Yeah.
Okay,
To
not that
contest it.
guy
Yeah.
wasn't cooking it coming down the field, but as a safety, that brings an issue to a safety issue.
No doubt. No doubt about
You
it.
can't play that way. And then what he did he bit on the tight end corner route, and then got beat back inside on the turnaround. So, those things the safety can't do. But the pass rush issue is, do you see them bull rushing more because of the lack of pressure inside, Duff? I'm not sure.
I I think I do, but I mean, geez, we couldn't get near the guy. I mean, we just really couldn't. And when the quarterback, and he was already on top of his game. He's been more confident player the last two seasons. I'm talking about Darnold, the quarterback,
Yeah.
in terms of how he's played. So he's got the confidence to sit back there. We just enhanced it by really not getting enough push in the pocket to get him to either readjust or to get off the spot any.
Right. And
Yeah.
then we waited until the second half to blitz and do what we've done in the past, didn't we?
Yeah, yeah, and I
It was
think that's
great adjustment finally.
yeah, no, that's what you got to do as far as that's concerned. And like I said, I mean, they played so well in the first quarter. They had the one explosive in the first half. I mean, you go in thinking, okay, we can hang in here. They had a field goal in the 2 minute just before the half. So I mean, everything was right in the picture right now. But they came out in the first drive of the second half and took that sucker down the field and scored. And that took a little wind out of our sail. I'll tell you, the guy that showed up again this week was Buster Brown. He made two
Oh yeah.
really good pass broken ups. I'm very impressed with the confidence that he's playing with and the playmaking he's playing. We got to get him more involved.
Yeah, it's a great call, Duff, because that's a guy that is sensing it, gets to the ball, plays physically at a very high level. And you need that against the Jackson Smith and Jigbas of the world, the Cooper Cups. You got to be able to meet them and match them physically. So Darnold comes into this game, guys, 28 of 34, 341 yards. He had a 135 passer rating, and they definitely are a top 5 scoring offense. We certainly saw that. All right, so here's a question from one of our viewers. And by the way, you guys can find us on Instagram, X, the YouTube. We appreciate it. So Jacob's on Instagram. Do you think the win from the Chiefs stayed in everyone's head for too long and they didn't move on? Seemed like they mentally just weren't prepared. I'm sure the short week plays a part too. And it does, Coach Ingram, but at the same time, you got to stack together wins. That's how you get recognized. True?
No, you definitely have to stack the wins. I don't know if that affected as much as that we didn't bring enough intensity, thinking that, they're going to have a problem coming out here. And we're going to have to find a way to mentally recoup. Maybe we spent too much time trying to think about recouping and doing what we normally do every week. Sometimes little subtle changes, that you change affects the team. Now, there are times as the season goes on that those changes are good, but sometimes early in the season, this is early in the season, making subtle little changes, you never know how that affects your team or not. I'm superstitious about not changing too much. That's been going well. And then, Duff, hey, I'm ready for inside line drills, some stunt drills, some whatever, and let's get after it, and just keep it the same. That's just the way we grew up.
Yeah. So, and I think maybe Liam Cohen's going to take a page from what you're saying, Coach Ingram, because he appeared a little pissed off after this game. And there's a couple of ways to look at this, guys. He keeps repeating the same thing, which you as coaches, it can drive you crazy, because if you have to go to the podium every single time and go too many penalties, too many pre-snap violations, so on and so forth, well, then who does it fall on? Does it fall on the coaches? Does it fall on the players? Coach Duff, hit that one first.
Well, I think I think that often that comes to the players, and so I think the penalties, which spiked up again. I mean, way too many penalties in the course of the game, 10 at least. That's a lack of focus. And so I think what you said earlier in terms of, I think coming off a great win again on a Monday night, and I'm not trying to give them excuses, but it's human nature right now. They probably came out of that thing pretty full of themselves. They got a lot of accolades during the course of the week. Great start. You just beat Kansas City, Monday night TV, blah, blah, blah. This team just got beat. They got to come across. Gerald was talking about it. The setup for a trap game, if you will, was kind of there. And we, as a young team and a young staff, a first-time staff, kind of unfortunately maybe got their focus clouded a little bit as far as that's concerned, because we played like a team that wasn't focused. I mean, that's really what happened in terms of the penalties, the sacks, way too many third and long situations in the game where. So by our own, I like what Liam said. We beat ourselves. We tripped ourselves, as far as how we played in the game. And it wasn't just one side of the ball. It was the special teams too. We miss a field goal. We miss a PAT. We had a couple issues as far as the special teams are concerned. So there was a kind of a cloud on the team, if you will, that I think probably came off of that week, and now so they've learned from that, and they're going to learn real quick because they're facing a damn good team over in London here this week.
Yeah,
we'll see how we respond, but it has been the same issue every week, and I guess having been with 23 years with Tom Coughlin, a lot of that stuff was downhill from us getting our ass chewed up out as coaches and making sure that we demand the most out of our players each and every week. I don't recall us having, operational issues or, and these kind of issues that lingered because it started from the top, and demand of excellence started from the top. And sometimes where we grew up from a foot in the ass, no matter if it was verbally or physically, that's where it started from.
All right, so let's get to one of the questions. You guys are more than welcome to throw comments our way wherever you guys are picking up the stream show. Keeter chimes in and says, Trevor seems to make everything remarkably difficult. And I think that's probably the thing that people are stuck on. He can make his share of big plays. He has done that. But then also everything does look a little bit tougher than maybe it should, especially when you're talking about the elite of the elite. Now, let's just go through this real quick, Coach Ingram. Less than 5 to go in the third. Jags are finally driving. He goes down on 2nd and 2, 6th sack at that point. They go for it on 4th and 5, and he throws across his body, finds Hunter Long. That was a big play. And then he comes back with another 4th down, scrambles and dives, and then they hit Tim Patrick. So he made some plays when they needed to, and of course brought it back to that 1-score game. But what do you think about? I think he's taking steps forward. Honestly, I do. I think he's reading the field. He's making more take the profit decisions. But what are you seeing that may frustrate a fan?
Well, you brought up a great point. I thought he made strides from that. His eyes were focused downfield. His biggest deal is making sure he knows where the line of scrimmage is from that standpoint. But his eyes were looking downfield. Even the play that was called back on a penalty, that was a headsy play. So he's thinking about looking for the bodies down the field. They hadn't done in the past. In the past, he'd panic and throw in a double coverage, something done with that, an interception would happen. Why would you do that and throw it, and not throw it to the uncovered guy. So
Mhm.
that was progress. And you just wish he had a little more time, because when he had time, he looked effective, very effective,
Mhm.
you know. So that uncomfortability is something he's still got to progress, and it was better.
I think consistency in his play. I mean, and I agree with you, Joe. I think he is getting better. He missed our tight end Strange in the game. A guy that's been a very regular receiver, great, target for him. He missed him as far as his play, but he threw. You could see him going through his progressions where he could, and he was hitting checkdowns, hitting those kind of things. I think that he is getting better, but consistency still has got to become more paramount in his play.
Yeah, and when you think about that part of it, and I'm sitting back, and you guys know we all are trying to figure it out, and I do think, like we said, there is progress. But when you watch Baker Mayfield do what he did, when he takes off and runs, and both of you guys can appreciate it, he becomes a running back and a linebacker at the same time, and he makes those types of plays, and I think Trevor's getting closer to that. And one of our comments right there, he misses on routine throws. That's frustrating. And I think Liam's going to coach him hard this week, guys, I believe. I think he's going to coach this entire team hard, Coach Ingram.
Well, I think the difference between Baker and Trevor, and you hope Trevor gets to the point, I think Baker has so much confidence. And some people used to construe his cockiness with confidence. And I think when you're, as a quarterback, you're so confident about how you're playing, you play above the X's and O's.
Yeah.
And hopefully he gets to that point.
Yeah, I think there's really a step forward that needs to happen. I think if you go back in time, and we did our preseason predictions on XL Prime Time, Big Sirs, Maddie, and me, and I probably had them right at 4-3 at the bye. And this is a big game. I'd much rather see them 5-2, because Duff, if they come out of, like you said, this unbelievable scene Monday night with a win, everyone starts to take notice on what's happening on both sides of the ball. And then they drop this game and that game, they're going to have to eat that during the bye week, which is not good.
No, you always want to go into a bye with a win, for sure. And again, they're playing against a doggone good Rams team coming up right now. I mean, on both sides of the ball, one that also is anxious to, get better each and every week. So the focus has got to be there for us. And I think, like I said, when you really analyze this game across the board, everybody contributed to the loss. And
Yeah.
I think it was a lot of focus. I mean, it's just too evident with the miscues that occurred, whether it be in play or penalties, special teams, whatever the case may be. So this week, and I like the way that Coach talked about it too, that we're going out there, we're going to be there together, we're going to be focused in together. The focus was a big word that came out, and that's what's going to have to happen, is they want to get back on track against these Rams.
All right. So, Coach Ingram, do you think the absence of Robert Hainsey and maybe the subpar play of Walker Little in this past game, you can really go down the line, but they had less than 70 yards rushing, maybe even less than 60 yards rushing, and all the pre-snap penalties. Is that number one thing to address on the offensive side? Where would you go first?
Well, I'm definitely going to address that. We have to run the ball. We have to stick with the plan for the season, and we have to find a way to run the ball. And I like to see us run the ball in some 3 wide sets. And, since I don't care what they do, but we can't get away from it, because we have to be more effective throwing the ball. Now, I'd like to see us move the pocket. When we're in a situation like that, we always said we had to move the quarterback in different situations. We didn't see as many nakeds. I like to see a sprint out. When you're having those kind of issues, don't stay in the pocket as much. Just move the quarterback around and the launch point for the defense. Do those kind of things, and 3-step drop. Just mix it up a little bit to get the confidence back in the quarterback, the steadiness, as well as the offensive line, because there was an unsteadiness within our right tackle and our left tackle, because we hadn't seen them do that since camp. To be honest, we saw some of those things in camp, and we hadn't seen that through the season.
All right, so stay there, and then Coach Duff, jump in on this. But first, Coach Ingram, This is from Jacob on Instagram. How do we feel about the illegal formation calls on the right tackle? Because that was Anton Harrison taking that. He was lining up off the line of scrimmage, basically. So I know you're in the running backs room more than you are in the O-line room, but as an offensive meeting, how are you getting after Anton saying, hey, be sound, baby?
Well, it's one thing. I mean, I've always had a connection with the offensive line because having to merge the pass protection and the help situation, who needs help, each week going against, SAP, whatever. So we work together. In those kind of situations, a young offensive line sometimes will have a tendency will set back off the guard. And if the guard is setting too far back, then the tackle all of a sudden is thinking that he's setting too far back as opposed to where he normally lines up. It's the same thing with, with Hunter. You got to get out there and you have to find a routine. You find a line judge, okay, and you do it every time. When you don't, how you line up as a receiver and do your routine every time, you can start to find an inconsistency in yourself and not notice it. And there might have been, when they got in that offensive line, they're gonna be tough. That's one group that's tough on each other, okay? Yeah. Because they know the game starts with them and it ends with them, so they're gonna address
it. And Coach Duff, it's a dream on the defensive side when you know that you've got guys that are intimidating that offensive line to take advantage of it.
Without a doubt. I mean, when you look at after we scored, which I think was on our third drive, scored the first touchdown of the game on our third drive, missed a PAT. Well, then we come out, and on the fourth drive of the game, we get a sack. We come off the field. It was like a 3-and-out. We get a sack, and then tempo occurs, and then we start this penalty situation where Harrison, he lines up off sides. He did 2 series in a row. And so that's just before the half. We had 2 illegal formations. Then we got a false start by the quarterback. So everything started to avalanche a little bit with it at that point. And so the defense now is going to gain momentum as far as that's concerned because they know now they've got them rattled. We got the quarterback false start. We got a guy lining up twice, 2 series in a row, inappropriately. Those things have got to get fixed. So we got rattled a little bit by there. And again, that's, direct response to what their defense was doing. But again, it's about us. And that's what Coach talked about. We got to take care of us right now and clean up this stuff so that we don't beat ourselves. It's too tough to play against the opponent, let alone ourselves.
All right.
Plus, I truly believe you can't let a defense think that it's all pass. That to the point where they're just teeing off. They're not playing. They're not defending the run gaps. They're just playing upfield and teeing off.
Well, you're 100% correct.
Yeah, and this is teeing off, fellas, in a 1-score game.
Yeah.
That never should happen because that goes right back to the run game. I believe they had 1 screen pass, and it worked early, and they didn't really go back to it. And then obviously the run game will get bodies off your quarterback. All right, that didn't happen. All right, so real quick as we wrap it up. Coach Ingram, Coach Duff, you guys each give us a thought as far as this game coming up Sunday in London. What's kind of one or two keys, Coach Ingram, that you see going up against the Rams?
Well, I think, like I said before, we have to run the ball. We have to establish the run somehow. We have to attack people and keep people in their lanes. Now, we're playing the same type of quarterback situation. We're playing the same type of defensive situation. They're a 3-4 team, and they're solid, against the run team. And so the same game plan you had last week, you need to expound on this week and play with more intensity.
Coach Duff?
Well, I'll tell you now, what Gerald just said is accurate. I mean, Stafford right now is smoking right now in terms of their quarterback right now in terms of passer rating versus pressure. He's number 1. He leads the league in deep balls. So things that we've just faced, he's second in passing touchdowns. He's second in completions as far as that's concerned. Now we got a break, and I hope in that Puka Nakua, their receiver, has got a little ankle right now. He was leading the league in targets, receptions, yards. Didn't have a drop in the season so far. 9 straight games with 7+ receptions. So, I mean, a stud. So if he's on the shelf, that's helpful. Now they still got Devontae Adams that can get at you, and then this Kyron Williams is a second leading rusher or he's in the top 10 in many categories in terms of rushing, but he's fumbled the ball twice.
Yeah.
And then when you look at their defense, they were playing great against the run prior to this last game. Now against Baltimore, they got gashed. They wound up giving up 179 yards rushing to echo Gerald's comments, 4.8 a rush. So we got to run the football like Coach is talking about right now to get this pass rush group off of us right now because they're a little shook right now from their run defense, and that'll be a factor for us.
Yeah, and I know that Sean McVay is going to want to see if he can crack the code on what Liam gleaned from him, what he brought here, and that's going to be a nice little piece of gamesmanship between those two guys, that's for sure. Hey, coaches, well, always good stuff, man. We know the people out there, all of Duval and beyond, appreciate it. The intel on both sides, Coach Gerald Ingram, Coach Mark Duffner, both sides of the ball. Thanks to Ozzie for always kicking tail and getting us on the air. And then we'll have Coach Ingram on XLP later, XL Primetime in the 1 o'clock hour. And then we'll keep it coming with another show next week. Fellas, thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you. It's a great day.
All right. We'll talk Jaguar ball with you next week on both sides of the ball.